So you've probably heard the saying before that the greatest invention ever created is a deadline. It seems to make people get their priorities straight and really execute the most crucial, important, and most impactful tasks immediately, usually because they've been putting them off for quite some time up until their deadline. So with this in mind, what's interesting when you're working on a side hustle, if you're a current entrepreneur with an existing company and you're starting up a new one, or you're employed and you like the idea of entrepreneurship and you're doing a hustle on the side, what tends to happen is, because you don't have your full-time energy and focus on that time, you have limited resources. So you spend those resources correctly on the most impactful and most important tasks. So I'll give you an example. If you're employed, working 9 to 5, like most people are who are employed, you might get home about 7 p.m. and work on your side hustle from 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. And because you don't have a full 12-hour or full 18-hour day to work on your projects, like someone who is full-time in their hustle or full-time in their company or their idea, you're going to use those few hours from 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. a lot more cautiously. You're going to use them on the most impactful things, the things that drive the project forward, rather than just working on the enjoyable things. So what tends to happen is, when we get more time, when we go full-time into our projects, we might not be as productive because we have the time to play with. We're not going to be as appropriate in how we allocate time to certain tasks because we have more of it to spend. This tends to happen whereby entrepreneurs who go full-time in a project don't make as much progress as when they were going part-time, because now they have the ability to spread their tasks out over a week rather than choose the most important tasks and do those between the 7 p.m. and 2 a.m. every single night. So because you have less resources, you execute quicker. You do the most important things when you should in the time you have, because you don't have a lot of time. So when time is a scarce resource, I see it a lot with friends and entrepreneurs who are starting up new projects. When time is a scarce resource, either because they're employed or because they're full-time in their current project, they use that time as effectively as they can. And they use deadlines as leverage to get things complete. However, if you're full-time in your project, and you're full-time in your company, or you're a full-time entrepreneur, whatever you're doing, if you're full-time, you have the flexibility to work your own hours, right? There's no one telling you that you have to get something complete between this set amount of time. So you kind of unwillingly can spread out tasks throughout the whole week because you have the whole week. If you don't get something complete on Friday, you can work on Saturday and Sunday because you're hustling over the weekend anyway. So what this tends to look like is that when people do a side project or a side hustle, they are able to grow it relatively quickly because they're using their time correctly. They only have a few hours per night to work on it, but they make those hours count. So what happens is, when they get their side project up to a point where it can replace their full-time income, they then drop out of the full-time income, which means their income has reached a certain amount, but now their time now goes completely into the project. So now they don't have as much pressure to work within the time available, because previously they had to go to work. So they made every second count on their side hustle. And that's something that you should really be cautious of, is that if you work for yourself, you need deadlines, and not just things in your calendar or in your to-do list. You have to actively and proactively create them for yourself, if it be with clients or customers or anything like that as well. So just to recap, what tends to happen is, when people are employed and they're doing a side hustle, they use their time a lot more effectively because they don't have as much of it. They don't have as much resources to, waste away, to allow it to spill over the edge. They utilize everything because they have to be up at 6 a.m. to go straight back to work at 9 a.m. for someone else. So from 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. they're hustling every minute on their side project as much as possible and making it count, and pretty much trying to work against the clock in order to launch this side hustle so that they can go full time. Now, when they go full time, what happens, and I see it a lot, and people don't like to admit this so much, is that when you go full-time, you have more resources, you have more time available, so you don't use it as efficiently as you should be, because you have more of it to spend. You know, you say, oh, I don't feel like working today, I'm gonna take Tuesday off, or you know what, I'm gonna finish at 4 p.m. and hang out with the kids, or you know what, I'm gonna simply not answer my emails today and work on something more creative, which is great, and it's the upside of being an entrepreneur, but the progress overall isn't as high as if you were full-time employed and part-time in your side hustle as well. So what tends to happen is you tend to spread tasks out over the available time that you have. If you only have 4 hours, then you're going to somehow complete that task in 4 hours. If you have 12 hours to do a task, then of course you're going to spread it out in 12 hours. It just happens. It's human nature. I don't know why we do it, but we just do. So when you set a clock, when you have a headline for yourself, amazing things happen. And arguably, someone who hasn't got as much time to put into their entrepreneurship journey, someone who is employed, is arguably more productive than someone who is full-time, because they don't have as much time to spend on it. They complete their work, their business plan, their launch, their marketing in 4 hours per night, when some entrepreneurs struggle to get it complete in 100 hours per week. So do not be the full-time entrepreneur who has 120 hours per week to work on their project, who does not make progress year after year, and who is being smoked by the person who is employed working on their hustle side as a side project a few hours per night, who is more productive than you'll ever be. So just make sure you have that pressure behind you. Make sure you're treating it with a deadline. So in short, creating deadlines for yourself, creating structure, creating a purpose for you to get things complete by a certain timeline, giving yourself pressure to just get the work complete is very powerful, especially if you're transitioning from a side hustle into a full-time entrepreneurship gig. You want to have that pressure there. You want to have the ability to put your foot flat and keep working as hard as you were and as effectively as you were when you were treating it as a side hustle. So that's what I see a lot of entrepreneurs slip up on when they go full-time, and just passing that intel onto you, and do with it what you will, and hopefully you will be going full-time into your hustle very soon.